as someone who has been through all those phases, you get out of school, you start working, and you go, gee, I wish I'd asked my parents a lot more questions. They probably knew a lot more than they were letting on, We all know that parenting's really, really tough. And it's even harder when your kids are growing up in a culture completely different to the one that you grew up in. How do you do it? How do you parent kids across a whole different culture? How do you navigate some of these challenges? What are the challenges? Join me today as I interview Cindy and Prabha, two of our pastors here at City Life Church, and talk about their experience parenting across cultures. So Cindy, Prabha, tell us about your kids.
I have only one. And
One?
He's 7 years old. Just now he turned 7.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, only one.
Okay, so far.
Yeah, so far one.
More than enough.
You never know.
Oh, yeah, okay, right. How about
On
you,
the
Cindy?
growth. I've got 3 kids, 2 young adult kids and 1 still in high school. So
Okay.
yeah, so the oldest and youngest, they're 10 years gap.
Okay, cool. And what kind of schools have they gone to? Like, what's that experience been like?
My kids, they went to local public school and they were quite happy with their schools and yeah, they had a good experience in their own schools.
Okay, so public school?
Yes.
And university or TAFE or?
So,
Straight into-
one graduated from university. She's working full-time. My middle one, my son, he's working part-time and studying at the same time in uni. And my youngest is still in public high school.
Okay.
Yes.
Yep. And Prabha?
My little one is in private Christian school. And it's good to see that Christian environment over there. And he loves it, enjoying it. Yeah.
Okay. And the reason I ask is obviously because I think, most of us are under the impression that you can have pretty different cultural expectations in going to public or private schools. So interested to see how that kind of plays out for us. So first of all, obviously both of you were not born in Australia. I know you aren't, Prabha.
No, I'm from Sri Lanka.
And Cindy,
I was born and grew up in Korea.
Korea? And how long have you been here?
About 18 years now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep, 18 years. And Prabha,
I'm almost 10 years.
10 years,
Yeah.
okay. Brilliant. And so, you're already navigating some of these challenges, right? Because I guess you haven't grown up in Australia, but are all your kids born here?
Yes, mine is
Yep.
born here. My little one born here. Yeah, and
Yeah. Mine is interesting because we always planned to have 2 kids. And then between Andrew and I, because Andrew was born and grew up here, and we wanted to have 1 child in Korea, 1 child in Australia. So
Right.
I had my first one in Korea, and the second one here.
Yeah.
Little did we know that we will have we'll be very blessed with another one. So she was born in Australia. So 1 in Korea, 2 in Australia, but 2 were all raised in Korea until they started, school.
Okay. So what age was that?
So when we moved here with 2 older 2, they were in prep and grade 2.
Okay. So, what's that? That's like sort of 7, 8 years old?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm sure that would have been a very interesting transition for them. Do you know what that was like for them?
Yes,
Like-
it was a big shock to them because when we moved here, our kids couldn't speak any English.
Right.
So they had to start from language school and even, not only kids, but even to me, the language barrier and cultural differences. So we were all in the learning, the journey together as a family.
Right. And did that make it easier or more difficult?
In both ways, in a way that I could understand and, just relate to their challenges, better. But, it kept us really busy because I was in a position not really being able to lead and guide them well, but I had to do my study first to be able to help them.
Right. And that's hard, right, as a parent? Because you want to give your kids good guidance, but you don't know either, right?
Yeah, they took a bit of, confidence that I just had naturally while back in Korea because, I knew much more than them and I knew about the school system.
Right.
Coming here, not just the language, whole school system is different. So it was a lot of learning curve, for me. So it kept me a lot more, the hours to be able to understand so that I can, guide, kids. But good that I had Andrew. He had a bit of, background growing up here. So he was supportive.
Okay. And for both of you, I guess, having grown up in another country and then now having children in a different country and sending them to school and you've already talked a little bit about the differences. What are some of the big issues that have come up because of that?
I would say, like Cindy said, the language is really, my English is for me third language. And I found interesting, even the school procedure and the system is totally different here.
Right.
Especially the private, my son goes to private school and, to get the admission, the day after he born, I need to take the photograph of all the documents and I need to straight away apply.
Right.
Otherwise, I may not really get the spot.
Right.
So, and after that, a lot of interviews and all, which is okay. But one of the struggle that I found, I haven't studied in English medium.
Yeah.
Now my son is studying in English medium, right? And some of the curriculum, even he's grade 1, some of the things they are teaching him, I have no idea. But thankfully, my wife, she studied in English, so she's able to support him and help him. I can't really help him with studies-wise in English medium studies. It's not really beyond my capacity, in other words, when it comes to education things,
Okay.
And it's a bit of a challenge as well as migrant parents.
Yeah.
But thank God, my wife is able to support and help. But,
And how about you, Cindy?
Yeah, it's just, for me, the first thing was like I had to really quick to learn to readjust my expectation on kids, school and the education. We all value education, but the way it's executed and practiced in Korea is quite different.
Yeah,
a lot of
I can
expectation on the kids. And I grew up feeling that, and it's part of, my own the expectation.
Sure.
Even though I feel that kids needed more freedom in the way that they learn for themselves, but I have to keep reminding myself okay, I'm not in Korea. This is different here, and it gives so much choice and freedom to the kids. Even the course selection as kids grow up, it was parents' job when I was growing up, and we just do as the parents tell you to do, and that's that means you being a good child and you listen and you try your hardest. But here, you have to consult with your kids all the time and discuss with them and hear from them what they really want, and that's what the school encourages all the parents and the children to do. So that was quite different. But one of the things that really, the really practical thing that stood out for me, the difference was, in Korea, we don't have to pack kids' lunch. Kids get hot lunch every day from school, and you only pay less than $1 for each meal. It's all done and served, to the kids. Coming here, I have to prepare lunch for them, and the kids say the lunch is not as yummy as what they used to get, as a hot meal, from school. So something that they had to learn. I have to learn something new.
Yeah.
Wow.
Also, I found that there's another difference, back in Sri Lanka, if you are in prep or grade 1, you will come home, before 12 o'clock.
Right.
The school will finish 11:30 or 12.
Right.
But in here, my son goes up until 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm like, from morning till 3 o'clock, wow, that's quite a long time. A bit different from where we were and where we are now. It's totally different. Time frame as well.
Yeah, and that's fascinating because when I grew up in Malaysia, right, and school started at 7 and finished at 4. So when I came here, it was like holiday all day every day. Schools here started at 9 and finished at 3. I'm like, I barely feel like I'm barely doing anything. So interesting to hear all the different cultural differences. Do you think that the landscape has shifted a little bit in terms of now being Sri Lankan or Korean or Chinese or whatever in schools in Australia, that's a lot more normal now?
In terms of?
I guess in terms of, for me when I was in school, depending on what school you went to, especially public schools, it was still a little bit unusual to be Chinese. I was one of the only Chinese kids initially when I first moved here, and so, you get teased about weird lunches, the sort of the classic stereotypes. Do you think that shifted a little bit?
I think it's very much because of talking with my kids. They say that at first they really wanted to fit into the peers, their own, friends. So they said, Mom, give me, sandwich. Don't give me noodle or rice. But later on, they felt quite comfortable in their own identity, a bit of differences they bring. So they would ask me to, Mom, can you give me sushi instead?
Wow.
What about fried rice? They change this. And where the diversity is so well respected and celebrated in this area. Because even my husband said when he was growing up, back how many years ago, he said he was the only Asian in this area. He stood out, but now it's just, many people come from all different backgrounds and the origins. And I think it's great to see that changes and kids even feel quite comfortable in those changes.
It's interesting to hear because even my little one, and as I mentioned, 7 years old only, but he doesn't want to have our rice and curry.
Right.
I'm like, mate, you're actually born in here, but still you are from Sri Lankan parents, You have a Sri Lankan, heritage. He doesn't want to have rice and curry. He wants, some pizza and pastas and macas and that kind of stuff. And, at school, he take only sausages and, some toasties and here and there. But he doesn't take our Sri Lankan rice and curry or anything.
Wait till he grows older. He will want, curry and rice instead.
Okay, so you think like it's a phase or something?
Yes.
Okay.
It becomes like, they are more confident and comfortable to embrace the differences. And it's almost, it's like you celebrate your differences in your uniqueness.
Okay.
So kids will ask for like, sushis, and then it's not only for their own lunch, like say, Mom, I want to share with my friends, and that's one thing that you got to be careful. You're not to share your food with others. That's another difference. In Korea, we teach kids to share with others. That was the first thing that they had to learn when we moved here. You're not to share any food or lunch, with others. Something different.
Same.
Yeah.
But also, what I found that there's a bit of challenge over here. Kids want to have their preference. I want to have this meal, that meal, and all.
Right.
But culturally, we like to, we think that these are the healthy food. It's good for your system, good for your immune system. Certain stuff you got to eat some vegetables and ginger and garlic and that sort of stuff. But they really don't want. But this bit of challenge and battle here. Kids don't want to eat, and we want to provide. So what we do at home, we told our son, you got to eat whatever mom and dad we provide. You got to eat every day, but except Friday night.
Okay.
We give him a bit of chance as well. We don't want to just push him away or anything.
Sure.
We give him a chance. Friday night, you can choose whatever you want to eat. So mostly he'll go for macas or pizza, but at least he will feel like, I have a turn as well. Something to give and take in order to balance the parenting as well. Yeah.
Okay.
Interesting that you mentioned that because I've got 3 kids, and we all have different, the likes in terms of food. So we had to, as they were growing up, we give, chance every, once every 2 weeks or something like that. They get to choose where they want to eat in terms of, restaurants. They get to choose, but we give them budget. Otherwise, we can't take them to buffet all the time, right? So you got to find somewhere, either $10 or $15 per person. You get to choose, and everybody has to just, even though it may not something that you like, but we go just enjoy that meal. We used to take turns like that so that we get to, try all different food. But as they grow older, now we have cooking duty.
Okay.
So you get to cook whatever you want. And we used to give them budget, but now they're, they're working and all that. They use their own budget to, buy and supply and cook whatever they want. I think it really gets to show that, all different type of food introduced, and we get to appreciate each other's, the favorites. So
good.
Wait till, Elijah gets to cook for you.
So let's hone in a little bit on the cultural different stuff, because I'm fascinated by this. Like, you mentioned, Cindy, this idea that, and you hinted, I think, at it more than anything else, but this idea, like, growing up in Asia, for all of us, there's this expectation of academic achievement. Let's call it that, academic achievement, right? You want kids to do well. You want them to go into a profession that pays well, so that they can, do well for their family, etc., etc. How have you navigated that? Because I feel like the expectations in Australia are a little bit different.
Yeah. It was one of the things that I internally struggled a lot too. Something that it's been put on my own expectation,
Right.
in terms of, valuing the education. But also I've also watched how some family relationship can be so broken and distorted because of unreasonable expectation from, both sides, from parents and kids. And then it really, ruins the whole relationship. So I had to bring into a balance in a way that I teach kids to appreciate this, the education opportunity. But ultimately they have to find what they want to study further, and also to get a job that they really enjoys. Not only whether it's well paid or it's really well regarded by the social status and whatever. Because I've seen so many people. I think it happens a bit more in where I grew up. Because if you're smart kids, either you become lawyer or doctor.
Yeah, right.
There's no the less value on those the people who have those jobs. But it's just that it's just so sad. And whereas here in Australia, whatever you get to do, you still can get the decent earning and you can still do your life, but fulfilling what you really want to do, to achieve your gifting and your potential. So I try to bring on that again and again, reminding myself, and also, talk with the kids and what they really want to do. It doesn't matter whatever job they take, but it's got to be something that they feel really passionate and they enjoy.
I found it's really, again, the Asian culture, we really say, you got to study, and sometimes we as parents will say, I didn't get to do this, I didn't get to study this, so I'll just put it on you. You better do it. You got to study. I didn't become a doctor, I want you to become a doctor. I didn't achieve this achievement, I want you to achieve. It's easy to put it on them. But having said that, I need to admit something here. It's a bit of challenge and battle as well. I actually tell my son, it's not about winning or anything, it's do your best. You do your best. But even though I tell these things to him, time to time it will pop up in my mind, make sure he study well. That I need to bring it down. And it pops up because of the cultural, the heritage, we just gain from our parents and great parents and all. So it's a bit of a challenge as well, even though I feel like I told my son recently, studies are good, you got to study. At the same time, he's a boy, right? I said, you got to physically do some sports, not games all the time, go out and do the sports and all. So I take him for, soccer and basketball and stuff like that. But at the same time, as a father, I'm still I'm working on that, education, and then education important, but we need to come down and, see what's best for him and which area he's good at. It's not my expectation on him. It's good to actually see what he wants to do as well.
And so what both of you are saying is very interesting, because I guess there's a relinquishing, right? You have to give up a little bit of your dreams for your kids, because then they can achieve their own dreams. How do you navigate that? That seems so challenging.
I so agree with you, because often, parents try to, bring your own unfulfilled, dream onto your kids so that they can relive, your unfulfilled, the wishes and desires and, goals in your life. But I think it's important, when I mention to our kids, like you said, do your best. So how I conceive, the best is quite different from what they think is their best.
Right.
So, for example, they come back and they say, oh, Mom, I've got this report and showing me that they are so happy that they passed the average. Do I celebrate with them or think that if you tried harder, you could have been in top 20%. So what is my best, for them that I think, from what they think. So I was quite, encouraged to see that my child was quite happy to pass that average and then celebrating him. I thought, that's actually really healthy self-esteem. And then we go from there. They're like, maybe you've done with this, about this much, but it would be so, sad to leave those unfulfilled, the potential that you could have done better. So I come alongside to encourage, but have to readjust again and again what we think it's their best.
Yeah, on that note, normally we celebrate culturally, back in Sri Lanka and all, only big thing. When you pass, high marks, or when you achieve something, only we celebrate the big stuff. But one of the things I'm learning these days to celebrate little stuff as well. When he do something, even little small thing, just to cheer him up. Well done, you are doing a great job. Well done. And even though other day he played basketball and he didn't get a trophy, and then he was a bit sad. Then I was cheering him up. Well done, buddy. I'm so proud of you, because you know what? You did so well. As Dad, I'm so proud of you. And his mood completely changed. He's so happy that Daddy is happy. I think we need to learn to celebrate every small moment as well.
Yeah.
It's really important for kids.
I mean,
Yeah.
there's that classic stereotype, isn't there, that, for Asian young people growing up, it's like your parents are never happy. So to hear that, I think is very meaningful. Well, what strikes me here in hearing both of your stories is that I think one clear theme that's coming through is communication. Actually sitting down and talking to your children, which can be very difficult for Asian parents, can't it? Like, so how do you do it?
I make it a point, because it's already in my mind, and I make it a point, intentionally. Sometimes I do that. I just, whenever he wants to, he's only 7 years old. Whenever he wants to play, I intentionally make time and play with him and make him feel like, yeah, daddy's really, playing with me, and that's what he wants in this age. He wants daddy to play with him and jump. He wants you to jump on daddy and that. So each stage is different, right?
Right.
And I really don't know how other stage is going to be. But this stage, I really intentionally spend time with him and enjoy the moment. Having said that, there are times I get cranky as well. I'm like, I asked you to do this. You completely forgot. Just go and do it. Lose our temper time as well, in our parenting. But yeah, learning at the same time. And, I feel like because talking to different people as well, and I feel like it's normal.
Sure.
It's normal for as parents, as dad to go through this, as long as we don't really continue, we need to bounce back and, to make things better in their world. Yeah.
That's good. How about you, Cindy?
I think it's important that, we are available when they want to talk, because kids go through different phases. When they're little, they always want our attention and our time. And that's when we often are very, very busy. And sometimes we go and nod and, oh, yeah, but our mind could be somewhere else. And it's the time that we need to really, cherish, because only later on you realize, oh, I wish our kids, come and continue to talk to me. But then that's when we notice that, we lose them already.
Yeah.
Because there will be a time that as parents will be the last they want to talk to, because they rather talk to their own friends or other friends and all that. So I think it's important for us to be able to, appreciate the moment that we are in, but also as they grow older, as Prabha mentioned, they go through different, phase. There's a time that they want, absolutely all our attention and time. And there are times that they want to keep a bit of distance, from us. But, we are not to lose heart, because it's not that we are losing our kids, keeping that distance, try to talk less to the kids, but, making whatever you say impactful, so that you don't talk long, because we don't get them. We lose them the moment you try to say more than 2 sentences.
Yes.
You lose them when they go through this teenage phase.
Yeah.
So I think it's I get reminded again and again, all different stages of kids. I won't call even having grown-up kids it's all problem-free. We still have challenges. They may find challenges with me.
Yeah.
I may find the same way too. I think we continue to have that learning attitude and just learn and grow with whatever that's coming in the new phase and season.
Yeah, another thing is interesting, that season that my son is in, he thinks his friends are always right.
Yeah.
And his friends knows better than the daddy.
Right.
And he will ask, are you sure, daddy? My friend told me this. I think my friend is right. He thinks daddy doesn't know anything.
Sure.
Friends know. That's the season there. It's very interesting.
And it comes full circle, right? I think when, as someone who has been through all those phases, you hit, you get out of school, you start working, and you go, gee, I wish I'd asked my parents a lot more questions. They probably knew a lot more than they were letting on, But I find that fascinating, Cindy, that idea that, creating the time to have impactful and meaningful conversations. Because the stereotype, and again, we play on stereotypes, but it's natural to all of us, is that idea of having, Asian parents like to give their children lectures.
Yes.
And every time you come to your parents and you want to ask them something, you end up getting a lecture, so you don't ask them anything.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, learning to avoid that, I love that, keep it short, sharp and sweet. But it sounds like for both of you guys, you've learned to find ways to create space, and it's different at different times. How do you learn this stuff? How do you, I'm sure this doesn't come naturally for many. How do you learn how to do this?
Especially, for me, migrated from Sri Lanka to here. And I think it's really good to have a community around us.
Right.
Because now my son is only 7 years old. I'm long way to go. But there are people who, like Cindy, already gone before me and had some of the challenges and, experience and all. Sometimes, talking to, person like that or having a community around us, it's always help. Bit of, advice and input and bit of support and help and all. It really helps. For me, like I'm still, talking to people and about when your son talks like this, how do you handle?
Right.
When you lose your temper, how do you handle it? How do you manage to, spend time with your son, in a busy world like this? I'm still talking, still getting some advice and all. It's good to have a community. Also, I found that, similar age group kids,
Yeah.
it's good to find the families like that.
Sure.
And to let them play together and bit of, friendship, to create friendship for themselves.
Yeah.
At the same time for us as well. We actually journeying together end of the day in this parenting,
And
Yeah,
you say?
because I think the plugging in the community is a big thing. Because in the parenting, we know it's really, really, such a privilege, but nobody can say that it's such an easy journey, right? So I think the moment we connect with other people and just, we don't even need the solution, somebody did this, that well and it worked. I mean, the moment we get to share our challenges, it makes us feel quite normal that, okay, everybody's going through the same thing. I'm not the only one. And that opening up together in the community really helped, looking out for each other and, learning from each other. Sometimes you learn what to do and what not to do. I think it really brings, great, advantage.
Yeah. Also, I would say look out for any kids activities. Sometimes in churches we'll have some kids events, activities and stuff like that. Sometimes within the community they will have kids activities events. So when you go there, you will connect with other parents as well, and you'll connect with other kids. So it's good to it'll be easy to form community within that circle as well. Yeah.
Let me ask you one more one question, which might be a bit controversial. When you're part of communities and engaging with other parents and doing all that, do you find it difficult not to compare your kids with other kids?
It's always challenge. It's always challenge. Some kids really do well and better than my son. If I be honest with you, in terms of interacting and the vocabulary and sporting and everything, and it's naturally that boy is really doing well, and what's wrong with him? Why is he not doing well? And compare. I know it's not really right. It's not good to compare, and it's not right. But if I be honest, it comes naturally. It comes as well. This is one of the area that I think I'm actually working on every day.
Sure.
Pretty much. Yeah. It comes.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up that question, because I had this not long after I moved here. Of course, I wanted to meet up with some other Korean, the community, and a lot of Korean families, because we still come from a high education value, background. A lot of those the kids from those community, they're really outstanding, performance, academically. And then every time I come back home, feel like, having that struggle. I don't think I'm doing a good job to navigate and guide our children, and our kids are not doing as well. Constantly struggling with that, sense of comparison. And I knew that it wasn't the right, path that my mind should go into. So bringing back to the thought again and again, and just focus on, ultimately God has the special purpose for each one of them, and each kid is so unique in their own way. I say this, easy way, but it was really, really hard to put it into practice for me, not to drop, not to drop that thought, what God has on them, but continue to go on with what I believe, what is best for each child. And that was a humbling journey for me too. And it is still happening. The comparison journey can go forever.
Even, when my son plays sports, I want the best. I want him to do best. I want him to win. Naturally, right?
Yeah.
But end of the day, like you said, and not everybody going to win. Sometimes we got to understand. But I think, like you said, it's really dangerous part when we compare kids to another kids, and indirectly we are putting our child down. you know, which is not really good as well. So we are the only one there for them. We need to cheer them. We need to lift them up as well. But it's even if I put it out, it's a bit of work. Work need to be done. You know, as parents, it's hard work. It's not easy. Yeah.
But you know, one thing that really struck me one day, what if kids compare me with other parents? It's really, you know, terrifying, you know, thought. And you know, we as parents, we always, you know, carry a bit of, you know, the guilt that, like, you know, am I doing it well enough? Am I doing it right? You know, all that sense. And you know, imagine kids have that thought in their mind. So in the same way, we shouldn't compare, you know, our kids with others.
And to be honest, you know, having sat on the other side of that, I think one thing that it's helpful for parents to remember is that your kids are already doing that comparison of themselves to other kids anyway. You know, which is where so many can have self-esteem issues and things like that, right? Because that's their world, you know, their friends around them. And then to hear, you know, their parents come along and say, oh, well, you're not like X, Y, Z, that can really be damaging or challenging for them because they're already doing that to themselves. You know? They don't need another person saying it. So thank you for being so honest and, you know, so transparent about this because it's tough, right? It's tough being a parent.
It is.
Especially across cultures. So as we kind of wrap up here, any last big tips for parents who are doing this journey?
I would say parents, you know, just look for community and have some people around you and learn from one another. And at the same time, support each other as well. And the community is the key, I would say.
I think, you know, as we know that it takes a village to raise a child, for our job is not to be that village, you know, ourselves, but we bring the village around them to build up the village for our kids. I think it goes a long way. And not just to you know, talk about the church, but I think it played a big part for our family to settle in here, to find the church where kids really enjoyed kids program that makes our, you know, the weekend, the schedule a lot easier because they wanted to come. And then they grow up in youth. Again, you know, brought this great support, the community to them, something that I couldn't talk to them, but other people come around to talk to them. So I think, you know, again, you know, stay connected in the community, I think is a huge, huge thing.
Also, I would say, you know, it'll be good to actually affirm our kids and you know, encourage them and tell them how much you love them. It's really important. Culture to culture is different as well again, but it is a good thing to have, good culture to have, to tell them that you love them. No matter what, you know, you still love them. I think in this, especially I'm doing it with my son, 7 years old, I want him to hear that over and over as he grow up, you know, my dad loves me, my mom loves me, no matter what. That's really important as well. And celebrate every single thing. Small thing or big thing, just celebrate. It's really good.
Yeah, very much.
Well, thank you so much for your time, guys. Really appreciate that. And we'll keep this conversation going. People are always welcome to come and join us here at church, where we're not perfect. And we haven't all got this figured out, but we keep working on it together, right?
We are still learning together, and thanks, Juven, for the opportunity. And it's good to be with you and Cindy as well. Thank you.
Great to be joined by these amazing people. Thank you.
Hey, thank you so much for joining us, and we hope that this was a really helpful, productive conversation for everyone watching. We're not going to solve all the issues, but there's plenty more to talk about. So why don't you subscribe to our channel, hit like if you enjoyed the video, leave us a comment. What can we do next time? What can we keep talking about? Thank you so much for joining us. Have a wonderful day.